Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Inside Furman Athletics. I am Dan Scott, the voice of the Paladins. Good to have you with us for another week, and we kind of overlook things here outside the football radio booth, which doubles as my office. Sun is shining brightly. Spring is right around the corner. In fact, spring football practice is starting this weekend here at Furman. We'll talk about that among some other things with our guest today. Rob Carson is joining us. He is Associate Athletic Director here for Academic Success as well as Diversity, Inclusion, and Engagement. And he does a lot of other things, including overseeing the football program and football scheduling in his duties. So we've got a lot to talk about in a short period of time. How you doing?
Good, Dan. Thanks for inviting me over. Like I said, I get to come up here and enjoy the view for a little bit and hang out with you.
Yeah,
so,
there are worse places to spend some time.
Absolutely.
Pull that microphone up just a little bit. There you go. You, I can excuse. My broadcast partner, Tom Van Hoy, has been in the business even longer than I have, and I kid him about being maybe the least technological person that I know. So I always give him a hard time about that. I got to give you a little bit of grief as we get started here, because you're kind of dressed down a little bit today, but normally you're a bit of a fashion plate. But you are the second best dressed person in your household, because Jackie Carson, women's basketball coach here, is the standard on this campus. I don't think there's any question about that. And now she is all over Twitter and Instagram and anywhere else doing trick shots, hiking the ball between her legs like a football center from the three-point line and nailing it. I just want to make sure that you're not having any inferiority complex problems, that you're doing okay.
Absolutely,
and everything's good in the Carson household.
Oh, everything is great in the Carson household. It's always good to watch each other have a little bit of fun, and with the trick shots kind of started with Don Staley and kind of took legs of its own. Mm-hmm. So it's always fun watching them get together and have a little bit of fun.
Now, was that her one trick shot?
I don't know. They might change them up from time to time. So who knows what'll come next?
That's funny. How are the little Carsons?
Oh, busy. That's where the work comes in. They're busy. They're heavily involved in soccer, heavily involved in basketball. So it's an ongoing show.
And it points out something that I talk about with coaches here all the time, and I've talked about it with Jackie, is that we're blessed to work at a university that values family time. Because when you have children your age, and you have how many and how old now?
Two girls, 8 and 10.
Okay, see, I'm with you. I had two girls as well. Now, mine are grown now, so you just wait until they start dating. That's a whole other conversation.
We still got about 30 years.
Yeah. There you go. Best attitude to take. But we work at a place that values family time, and especially when both parents work at the same university, it can be a juggling act, but you find a way to get it done.
Oh, no, it's been great to work in this environment. It teaches you a lot about being a parent. You kind of know, working with the kids at the college age, you kind of know what you need to start preparing your own kids for, but also to work in an environment that's so family-oriented. Our kids are around a lot. And I think one of the most important things is the type of student athletes that we bring in and we recruit, that when we come over here, from the time we touch campus, they're gone from me and they're hanging out with the women's basketball players that they look at as big sisters, and, whether we're going to soccer games or other games, and they just love it. And I know that they're in good hands with the type of student athletes that we bring in. Yeah,
I talk to Bob Ritchie about that all the time, because invariably when we're doing a pregame interview or a postgame interview following a Paladin basketball game, you look down on the floor, and usually it's Mac, and sometimes Audrey is out there as well. But we end up talking mostly about Mac because of his passion for basketball and hanging out. And for him, what he's doing is the most normal thing in the world. This is his dad's job. He's hanging out with these Division I college basketball athletes. When he gets a little bit older, he's going to realize, and Audrey will too, how special this opportunity is. They don't really understand it right now, that not everybody gets to do what they're doing, and your kids are the same way.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things as parents, you always want to try to, let your kids experience more than what you experience, regardless of what your upbringing was and what our kids are able to do, traveling with teams. You talk about Mac being on the sideline. I mean, that's a future coach in the making. So it is very special. It is special to see, and I don't think sometimes people realize how special that is when you turn on the TV and you see, whether it's Mac there, on the sideline, or after the game when you see my girls running up to the team and realizing the inside connections that they have. That is a special thing, but it's creating memories for forever. So,
speaking of sidelines, during football games, especially here at Paladins Stadium, as you know, we have a sideline reporter for the Football Network, former player Marcus Mcmorris. And anytime I have trouble locating him, all I have to do is find you, because he is normally right beside you, and you guys are having conversations. And I'm just wondering, because we joke about it on the air all the time, where's Marcus? Oh, yeah, there he is. He and Robert are talking again. What are you guys talking about down there? Are you talking football? Or are you talking other things while the game is going on? Because, we're trying to work up here.
We're probably talking a little bit about everything,
really?
To be honest. Marcus and I, developed a relationship when he was here as a player, and it's great to have him back around the program and having him there. And, sometimes we're talking about our frustrations or something that's going on or celebrating. And he knows the one rule: when he walks beside me, I won't talk until I know that the mic is unplugged.
Right.
I never want to get caught saying something crazy, talking about, whether it's a play or just something crazy. But most of the time it's just having fun. Catching up, just, we get to see each other once a week, so we try to use that time wisely.
So you are a smart man, which is why you are in the position you're in, because there are many people in the broadcast industry who've been there for decades, myself included, who forget that hot mic rule. So I like that awareness. We always joke that the rest of the radio crew is just here to serve who we call Mr. Mcmorris, sir. But he is absolutely fantastic.
But you know how it is, Dan. It's also good to talk to somebody that understands the game.
Yeah.
It's you hear so many comments sometimes during athletic events, and it couldn't be farther from the truth of what's going on. So it's also good just to talk to somebody who understands what's going on. And Marcus being a defensive guy, sometimes I'm asking him questions because I'm an offensive guy. So it's always good to have him down there.
And that is the exact mindset that Tom Van Hoy and I take with the broadcasts, because he and I are professional broadcasters. Neither of us played college football, but I have an offensive lineman as my color commentator in the booth, David Cobb, who was on the '88 national championship team. I have an all-conference performer in Marcus Mcmorris on the sidelines who played defense. So our job is to, as Tom always says, down distance, time, and score, lay out what's happening, and then rely on those guys to tell us what's going on. And there, we had a great exchange, and I actually heard it again the other day, because we have games playing on our little campus FM here that can be heard about in a 4-mile radius. But there was a great exchange where we sacked an opposing quarterback, and David Cobb asked Marcus, what does it feel like to sack the quarterback? And Marcus's response was, it's like stealing the quarterback's girlfriend.
Only Marcus.
Yes, only Marcus. And then it got into another conversation about David Cobb, an offensive lineman, cannot count the waitresses at their favorite buffet restaurant as girlfriends. So it went down, a rabbit hole. But that was the point. You get those little insights and those little humor from guys who actually played the game.
Mm-hmm. No, it's fun. It's good because sometimes they're just reporting what they see. They're reporting the experiences that they've had, and it's one of those things that when you've been in between the lines, regardless of which sport it is, there's certain things that happen that only you'll understand.
Right.
It's some of those things that you actually have to experience to truly understand what the feeling is or what happened in that particular play. But like I said, you got two greats, and I hear that y'all have great times and a lot of laughs when you're traveling and, making road trips. So one of these days I'm going to have to jump in the car with y'all.
You need to, because quite honestly, David Cobb's main function in our group is the post-game meal destination, and he's undefeated.
So he's the one I need to go to when I want to know where the good spots are.
He is undefeated. He always picks where we are going to eat after games or before if it's a late game. and I got to give him credit. As much grief as we give him about everything else, he's undefeated when it comes to picking post-game restaurants. So you need exactly. You need to load up and go on a road trip with us and see how the other half. I mean, the bottom half lives.
Okay, I'm definitely got to take y'all up on that and jump in the car.
Yeah, we've invited Jason Donnelly, and he has shunned us. So we're visiting with Rob Carson, Associate AD here at Furman. We're kind of talking football. Let's talk about your duties there to begin with. When you are the administrator for the football program here, exactly what does that entail?
I think it's just giving them an administrator, someone that can be close to the program, fight for the program, try to figure out the needs, the wants, improvements that need to be made. So I spend a lot of time around the coaches. Coach Hendricks and his staff has been great, because they could easily, view you as, oh, you're an administrator, you're an outsider, and try to hold you at bay. But from day one that he stepped on campus, I felt like an extension of his staff. And I guess, my passion for football, being an ex-football guy, speaking the same language. So when I go in there, a lot of times it's just checking in. A lot of times it's me just wanting to know what we're doing, having an understanding of game plans or whatever it may be. But more importantly, just to let them know that I'm supportive of them, supportive of the kids, trying to figure out what we can do to make the experience for the student athletes better. I think we do a great job, but just like anything else, we always are looking for ways to do better.
Right.
So that's one of the main things that I hope that they feel the same way that I think my presence around the program is bringing, but I hope that's the way they feel as well.
So for our fans who may not know, what is your football background? What's your resume?
So I played football in college at James Madison University.
You're a Duke?
I am Duke to heart, and I was able to keep my purple when I came to Furman. I'm a Duke and I'm a Paladin. So I played football there, 98 through 2002. Once I graduated, I kind of cut my teeth in athletic administration, working there with my former boss, one of my best friends and mentors, Miss Casey Carter, who gave me a shot and kind of showed me the ropes. And a lot of what I do now, and I owe to her. So that's where I kind of got started and didn't really know if that's what I wanted to do. But as soon as I did it, it's like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. I get a chance to work with student athletes. I get a chance to stay around the game and just have fun and live vicariously through the students that we work with now. So couldn't ask for a better situation.
So was there the fork in the road when your career was done that you didn't know whether it was going to be administration or coaching? Did you have any desire to coach at all, or was this the path you thought you might take?
To be honest, I wanted to go the agent route.
Oh, really?
And then, met with
third fork.
Yeah, met with the guy at the time, Andre Colonna, which I think at the time was Michael Vick's agent. Through, a friend of mine had one meeting and realized, okay, maybe I don't want to go to law school and all of that. So just tried to figure out what was next. And honestly, never thought about administration as being one of those until I got the phone call from Casey Carter asking me to come back to JMU to try a position that she had open. And like I said, once I got there, I was like, wow, I can't believe that I didn't think of this ahead of time. So never really wanted to go into coaching. I feel like even more so now, and I tell coaches, including Jackie, all the time, I don't know how y'all do it. The kids are just different. You can't, some of the things that I remember coaches saying and pushing you and the way that they really kind of got after you when I played, it's just different now. But I still think that the impact that coaches have, it's nothing like it.
I got to say, it's funny in my job covering and broadcasting football and men's basketball here, but I see more women's basketball practices than anything from a practice standpoint, because invariably when I get to Timmons Arena, which I usually do about 3 hours or so before the opening tip, Jackie and her team are out there practicing. Now, I know times have changed, but she can get after him now. She can get after him.
You have to, and I think when you have coaches that are passionate, as the coaches that we have, and that have experienced the thing that they've experienced as players, they want that for their kids, and they know the way that they got it was through grit, hard work, tough love, pushing people beyond the limits that they think they can reach. And I think that's why we've been so successful as a department, because we have the coaches that are doing that. but they're doing it the right way. You know, they're building the relationship with the kids where the kids know they care about them as people first, you know, and then that allows you to push a little bit more in practice, push a little bit more in games. You've built the relationship with the parents, so the parents understand the dynamic of it. At least you hope they do. But it's all in an effort to get the best.
That's an iffy proposition.
That's always an iffy proposition.
Talk to any coach at any level, and that's an iffy proposition. And even at the professional level now, with the advent of social media, you have certain parents who still try to make their presence felt over professional athletes, which boggles my mind. But that's another rabbit trail to follow for another day. One of your other duties with this is to kind of oversee football scheduling, and I know that's something that is really, really big on the minds of Furman fans all across Paladin Nation. And the signpost up ahead, if I can go Twilight Zone on you for a minute, is that it's going to get more difficult for FCS schools the way things are changing at the Power 5 level, and whether they're going to still want to play schools our size, which we have to play for the money games. I don't think there's no secret about that. So it's kind of a challenging proposition for you. I'm guessing that you and Clay kind of work hand in hand as far as what you want to accomplish. Just talk about that aspect of your job and what goes into trying to put together the best schedule you can.
Yeah, you're spot on. You know, it is challenging, but it's also one of those things that's fun. It's like trying to figure out how to put a puzzle together. So a lot of conversation goes on the front end, obviously, with myself and Clay, knowing what he's looking for. There may be opponents out there that he wants me to reach out to see if they have availability that fits our schedule. Talking to Jason Donnelly to make sure that the games that we need to schedule regionally, or whether we got to get on a flight and fly somewhere to play, just making sure that the games fit and the games are meaningful. And what we've done here over the last year, also trying to bring in people to this stadium that not only our fans will pile in here, but somebody that we feel like is going to travel and fill up the other side. I mean, North Carolina A&T last year, that game day atmosphere was amazing.
And thank you for scheduling them, because people don't know this about me, but I played trumpet in high school. I was in the high school band from an 8th grade on. I love that band. That marching band is incredible.
Yes, they're pretty good. And I wish I could take complete credit for that, but, you know, the person that I kind of stepping in for, Ken Pettis, was in charge of the scheduling when I took over, and he kind of showed me the ropes of how he did things. And to be honest, he left me in good shape. So he already had that one penciled in, and the band was a part of it. We just didn't know how it was going to work with COVID.
Right.
But like you said, Dan, it is going to get more and more challenging. We've got calls out, and people don't realize it, but right now we are already scheduled out at least a few games all the way out to like 26. We're already in conversations about games as far out as 29. So these are the games that you want to get, especially the big money games that you're talking about. We want to try to get those inked now because the landscape is changing. So the longer you wait to try to get those for the future years, it might come a time that those aren't available. And as you mentioned, as a school as the size of us, you know, FCS, you do depend on those guaranteed checks to come in to help fund a lot of things. So definitely not something that we want to go away.
Well, this fall is Clemson, and I know in subsequent years, South Carolina is back on the schedule. Ole Miss is on the schedule. The Tennessee game that was on the schedule has gone by the boards now, correct?
26.
So we are going to play Tennessee in 26.
It's tentatively 26.
Really?
We're trying to get it back on.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, because the last conversation, there's actually a question to Jason 2 episodes ago, and at that time anyway, the thought was that maybe that game wasn't going to be made up. So that's good to hear.
No, yeah, they've been great. Obviously, nobody expected, you know, COVID to come in and take us by storm. And when you have a contract, there's a lot of things that's kind of binding. But they've been great working with us. Can't thank them enough. But we are in the process now of making sure that game gets back on. And, again, still trying to revisit the Clemsons and the South Carolinas of the world. They make sense for us from a regional standpoint.
Right.
Jump on a bus, drive down the day of, and not have to jump on a flight. Because if you jump on a flight as a football team, as you know, that kind of takes up a lot of the money that you just made. So the regional games make sense.
At the same time, though, occasionally, don't you want to do that for the experience for the players? I mean, just for me as a broadcaster, in the time that I've been here, in my first year, we played at Florida. Mm-hmm. We've played at LSU. We played at Virginia Tech twice. We've played at Clemson twice. We've played at South Carolina twice. But we've also played at Michigan State, which, and opened up on a Thursday night, I think, in 2016, played at Central Florida. But the Michigan State trip, just never been to a football game in that part of the country. Wanted to see that. That was quite the experience for the players. So when you're doing this, I understand the economics and wanting to stay regionally. But is there some of that says, okay, occasionally let's look for something like this? Or
Dan, for the right conversation, we'll go anywhere. If Hawaii calls us and they're speaking the right language,
can you get that on the schedule?
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to figure that one out. See if we can do a doubleheader over there or something like that. But no, you're right. I mean, I just think about from my experiences playing, a lot of my teammates and stuff, it was the first time ever being on a flight. Mm-hmm. And then, when you come in and you experience what big-time football is like with the police escorts and all of those things, I think that also creates memories, and I think it's important to do that. So although we look to stay, in a place where we can drive, jumping on a flight is not something we're against, and it just depends on how scheduling works, who has availability, who's ready to sign a contract. And, like I said, if it involves us jumping on a flight to go back to Michigan State, then we'll do it.
Some of the focus, as you mentioned in passing a moment ago, is getting games at our level that are regionally attractive. You talked about NC State. What are some of the other possibilities? Not asking to give any state secrets, but maybe examples of some schools that we'd like to try to play. Are there conversations ongoing that you can share?
From a FBS guarantee game? Is that
No, from an FCS at our level.
No, I think Jason and I have had plenty of conversations about attracting some of the bigs. I mean, we're not against, if it comes down to it at one point, and it's North Dakota State. If it's a home and home where we go out there or they come here, something that's attractive, because we really believe in the coach that we have. We really believe in the program that we have. And to be the best, you got to beat the best. Mm-hmm. So if it works out that we can get some of those games, we're open to it. As a Duke, Jason was on me about trying to get JMU to come down here before they went FBS. But there are plenty of games like that we think make sense. Even when we talk about regionally, the South Carolina State, we'd love to get them back in the rotation for a home and home, just being right here in the state. But we're always looking for what is going to be a good game atmosphere, who has the potential to travel and make it feel really good on the other side of the stadium, and then with everything we're doing outside of the stadium, just creating that game day that people walk away from, and they were excited about every aspect of it.
Furman was leading the Southern Conference in attendance all the way up until the last weekend of this season, and the numbers – I think we're up about 60% over the previous fall. We don't count the spring of 2020, but going back to 2019, I know that made Dwight Covington very happy. FurmanPaladins.com for all your Paladins tickets. I'm going to throw Dwight a bone every chance I get, including the final weekend at the Well game this Saturday against Wofford, by the way. But the whole experience, it was something that I think some people thought could never be done here at Furman. People get set in their ways an awful lot, and then you see the concert and all the things outside and doing what we can inside. All of that is wonderful and needed to be done, but more often than not, it comes down to quality of opponent and how well your own team is playing, doesn't it?
Yes. You got to win. I mean, at the end of the day, people want to see a program that's winning. People want to see a program that's competing for championships. So it does start within the lines, but anything we can do as fans and administrators to create a buzz in the stadium outside of the lines, it definitely trickles down to the field. It creates that home field advantage. It creates that excitement that your kids have about playing in front of their fans. The students and the student tailgate zone, one of the things that our coaches talked about and our players talked about the most was just the feeling that they got walking through the Champions Walk and having all of the students there, high fives, cheering them on, having a good time. That was special. They had never experienced anything like that here. I've even heard some fans say, actually, this actually felt like a big day game atmosphere. And that's exactly what we were going for. Jason had a vision and the team, everybody kind of, put up and tried to do their part to pull it all together. And we were very excited about how it went, even under all of the things that we're dealing with COVID. But now we've seen that it can work. Now we got to go out and we got to beat what we did last year.
I was just going to say, all you have to do now is go out and do it again and be a little bit better, right?
Yes.
No pressure.
We'll even try to create. We're trying to create buzz. March 26th for the spring game. Trying to create more buzz around that in the spring. So it's definitely contagious. And once you experience that success, and once you experience it, it only makes you want more. So.
Right.
This summer, this spring, we're already on the drawing board about what can we do better. How can we make it even better than what it was last year?
We're visiting with Rob Carson, Associate Athletic Director here at Furman. We've been talking a lot about his duties with being the administrator for football. You're also the administrator for men's and women's golf. And, boy, the golf programs here just had an incredible moment last week with the official dedication of the new indoor facility. We've been talking about it with the coaches for a little while, but to unveil it to the public, how special was that?
It was an amazing event. Just to be out there and to see, when you think about it, you had the Board of Trustees, you had all of the President's Cabinet, Cindy and Brad, you can't thank them and all of the supporters that went into that process. You can't thank them enough because of the opportunities they're giving our student athletes.
Right.
And as happy as they were to, come out and put forth their money where their mouth is to make that happen, the student athletes, they've been getting. They talked about it. We don't get a lot of snow. But just so happened we got a little bit, little bit to go, and they were able to keep on going as usual. They went in, popped the doors open, and can still hit balls where otherwise they would have been out for a week. So it's already paying dividends for what they've wanted it to be, and it's just an exciting time. And I think it puts us in line to continue the legacy that we have with golf, and just to try to keep competing at the top with recruiting and all of the different experiences you can give them.
You played football, as you said, at James Madison, so you know a little bit about snow. I'm from West Virginia. I know a little bit about snow. People down here don't know anything about snow. So when we had that, and it was a significant event about a month ago, people lose their minds, don't they?
It's a little different. I know the first snow we experienced down here, I went out the night before, had my salt down and all of that, and the next day I went out and realized my driveway was the only one that was clean. Everybody else just left it and said we're hunkering down. And when they say get your bread and your milk and all that, people mean it literally around here.
Yes. Yeah.
So you definitely want to stock up.
Right, because you don't want to have a French toast shortage. Bread and milk, I've never really totally understood that. Similar duties with the golf programs as with football?
Yes, so same duties, and it's been a little bit of change. Where now I have the men's program, oversight of the men's program, as well as men's soccer, men's tennis. Jody Steffes now has the women's golf program, so we work a lot together with a lot of the programs or a lot of the administrators. But it's the same thing. Be around, be the eyes and ears of the program. Try to build relationships with the kids to make sure their experience is good, because at the end of the day, that's why we're all here.
Right.
If it wasn't for the students and the student athletes, none of us would have the jobs that we do. So the role is pretty much identical for every one of the sports that I have and that our other sport administrators have.
So you get to hang out with Doug Allison.
I do.
You got football and football.
I do. I got to make sure I don't get them mixed up. Doug will get confused if I talk about too much about American football.
Yeah, field versus pitch and all of that stuff. Visiting with Rob Carson here on this week's edition of Inside Furman Athletics. The other thing on your resume, and I wanted to save this for last so we could spend some time on it before we wrap up, but you're in charge of diversity, inclusion, and engagement here on this campus as far as the athletic program is concerned, athletic department's concerned, and that's something that is growing wings all across the country, and deservedly so. First thing I got to ask you, where are you getting all of these incredible facts you've been sending out every day campus-wide on Black History Month? Because I have really been enjoying these little nuggets that you've been sending out via email every single day.
Oh, Dan, I tell you, it's about building relationships. When I worked in the library, I was able to build a relationship with Robin Andrews, one of our colleagues in the library, and she's nothing short of amazing. She pitched this idea and is the person that put a lot of the work in and was sharing it in just a small bubble. And I told her this is great, and she said, well, I want to be able to share it more. And I asked her, I said, well, I have avenues to get it out to more people just in our area. And she was like, absolutely. So although I wish I could take a lot of credit for that, my credit was just building, relationships. And that's what a lot of this role for me has been. As you know, the post George Floyd incident, I think that sparked a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations where for the first time I felt like it was real conversations. I didn't feel like it was just lip service, and that's when my role changed to take on this responsibility. And even though it's in my title, it's everybody's work. There's nothing that I can do to push the needle by myself when it comes to this. So the collaboration that I have with people like Robin and others on campus, that's the only way to make change. And that's what I have to rely on, because stepping into a space that I didn't come from, doing DEI work, I'm learning just as much now as hopefully I'm sharing with others.
During the pandemic, when we couldn't meet in person, everybody was doing everything via Zoom, and some of that is carried over. But I know that there were some conference meetings and workshops and things like that that took place via Zoom, and I had a chance to participate in a couple of them. And the thing that I really, really like and enjoy about it is that it gives you a chance to celebrate the fact that we're different, but to also get other viewpoints. And some of the conversations and there's one in particular that I can remember that I was blessed to take part of, but I know that you're doing this all the time. Different races, different backgrounds, different cultures, different socioeconomic status, different religions. You don't always have to agree with everything, but if the door is open to have the conversations, you can accomplish a lot when it comes to understanding.
Yes.
Right?
I think that's the key. I think that's why it's such an uncomfortable conversation, because one, people are scared to ask questions because they don't want to be perceived as, because I'm asking this question, this means I think a certain way. But I think just trying to get to an understanding and listening and realizing that there are differences, just coming to grips with that. I think that's big. Some of the conversations that I've been able to have one-on-one have been very impactful, and those conversations I don't think would have existed without the tragedy that we went through in the summer of 2020. I don't think those conversations would have taken place. So as bad as that situation was, you look for the positive of what it brought after the fact. And you're right. Right now, we really need to get comfortable having the tough, uncomfortable conversations, and that's what we're trying to push. And just letting people know it's okay to ask questions. That's actually the best way to learn. The same way you would in a physics class or anything else. It's no different when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Maybe the best lesson that I have been taught where this is concerned came from a group of 4 young men from Afghanistan who in 2016 came and went to Clemson University on Fulbright scholarships, and our church kind of adopted them to bring them in, make them feel welcome, help them find places to live. One of the young men stayed with us for a week while we were taking him places and getting things set up for them, and those have been relationships that we have maintained. And the idea to a certain degree was that we were going to be there to mentor them and to teach them how to do things in America. They had never been here before. And as usually in the case when things like this, at least it was for my wife and I, we ended up learning so much more, I think, than they did, because for the first time as a Christian, I had a serious conversation with somebody who was a Muslim. And did we agree on everything? No. And won't agree on things. But we had an open dialogue. We had conversations that I cherish to this day, because the American, and then this is funny and sad, the American view of Muslims has been 9/11. Those young men had the same fear of that radical sect of Islam as Americans had, because they're doing more terror to their own people than they're doing anywhere else in the world.
Absolutely.
You don't find these things out until you sit down and have these conversations, and that's why I probably learned more from those young men than they ever could have learned from me, and it kind of opened a door for me that said, dummy, maybe you need to have more of these kind of conversations.
No, I think that's spot on. Now, so many times when we're dealing with somebody that's different, we want to impose, and I think all of us are guilty of this at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
We want to impose our beliefs and our truths. We want to make that their beliefs and their truths. And we don't realize that, no, it actually doesn't have to be that way, because I think diversity makes everybody better. In any situation that I can think of, if you have a diverse way of thinking, diverse experiences, I think collectively all of us are going to bring something different to the table that's going to make the final product that much better in whatever you're doing. So to your point, a lot of times we are still learning, and the people that are willing, just like you and your wife, that are willing to actually sit back and say, wait a minute, let me just open my heart, open my mind. Let me not try to let my beliefs and my thoughts cloud my judgment of who I think this person is without even giving them an opportunity. And then you realize that, man, even though we're not going to agree on everything, we've built a genuine bond and a genuine relationship where, if nothing else, now moving forward, you become an advocate for one of the people that stayed with you. You become an advocate where when conversations come up or comments are made in different circles that there's not representation from whichever group it is, you have someone that can step and say, well, nah, that's not the case, or this is what I learned. So learning is only good if you share it with others as well.
And it's funny how it's worked out, and God works in mysterious ways, because of that experience, the small group of us at church have kind of become the Afghan representation, because there have been subsequent students who've come in on Fulbright scholarships that needed the same kind of help, and now we're part of a group called Circle of Welcome that is helping with the relocation of these Afghan refugees. Something I never would have done had it not been for the experience with that one young man. And I'm not saying this in any way, shape, or form to pat myself on the back. What I'm trying to open my heart and be vulnerable in this conversation here at places where I was lacking, and where that one experience of being able to do that has made a significant impact on my life. And look, it didn't change my views on my Christian faith. In fact, if anything, it strengthened my Christian faith. But it gave me the opportunity to see things from somebody else's point of view, which I wasn't always. I don't even say I wasn't willing to do, Rob. It's just that in my day-to-day life, it just never came up. And now I'm finding out you need to be a little more intentional about things like that.
Yes, you don't find time, you make time for the things that are important. That's the key thing that I think you did. And like you said, not to pat yourself on the back, but I just think that's a story that people need to hear, because you were vulnerable enough to realize what you hadn't done.
Right.
Or what you, like you said, not necessarily wasn't willing to do, but you just had never made the time to do it. And when you did, the outcome is something that's still impactful to you. And not only did it help in that situation with you learning from them, I'm sure the positive impact that you gave them about Americans and just different things, I'm sure that's something that's lasts with them, where you're continuing that work. And that's the thing. For me personally, I'll say it. There was a time when it came to diversity, equity, and inclusion that I would only talk to people who looked like me, because I felt like they were the only ones that were going to understand and not try to diminish my thoughts or my beliefs or how I felt in a certain situation. So now I'm having to have this conversation, in public out loud. It's something I've become more comfortable with, because I realize, okay, how can I ever want people to understand what I'm doing if I'm not willing to understand what they're doing and what they're understanding? So it's a two-way street. It's give and take. It's vulnerability. And sometimes it's just admitting, man, I had this all wrong, which a lot of times none of us like to admit, but we do. We all make mistakes.
Well, and the thing about it is, and Angela and I prayed about this before we decided to do this back in 2016, and the biggest thing was the fear of stepping out of your comfort zone. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. Once we took that first step, then God opened the doors for these conversations and these relationships to build that are still strong today, and one of the young men has been displaced and has not been able to get into this country yet, and he's in another country, got out of Afghanistan now. But because of that relationship, we've been able to work with Congressman Jeff Duncan's office, and we're trying to find avenues to get him here. He would not have had, not just me, but other advocates, had people not been able or willing to have those initial conversations. The other thing is that my number one spiritual mentor has been my dad. He's been a preacher and a pastor for over 50 years. But the second one is my Sunday school teacher now, who I've been learning under for about the last 10 years. African American, proud man of his race, and we have had a lot of conversation. He's also a very no nonsense guy. He don't care what color you are. He's a no nonsense guy, and he was in HR for a long time, so you understand that, and very successful at it. But we were talking the other day, and this conversation came up, and I told him, I said, it's just been in the last few years. And when I said this, Rob, and again, I'm trying to be vulnerable here. When I would say this in the past, my heart was in the right place, even if it wasn't having the effect that it should have had. But I used to say, if you and I were having a conversation about race, I used to say, I don't see color. I treat everybody the same. I don't see color.
And I can guess what his answer was.
And then it dawned, part of because of him and part of because of experiences. If I tell you I don't see color, I'm diminishing who you are.
Absolutely.
And vice versa. And so that's something else that as I've gotten older, I've had to learn. And a lot of that came from conversations that I've had with him. And one of the things he says that gets him is when somebody says, well, many of my best friends are. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard that. You've heard that before too, right?
I have, and I had a conversation with one of our coaches that I'm good friends with, and the same conversation that it came up, and he was like, "Well, I just when I see you, I see Rob. Like I don't see color." And I said, "No, like I want you to see my color because that's part of who Rob is. Like don't feel like I understand what you're saying and what you're trying to say, but." It's actually just the opposite. We want you to see, our color or whatever our differences are. We want you to acknowledge that because that is part of who I am, or whether it's, just different people in their own space, that's part of who they are. So recognizing that and still having the same love and same feelings that you have, that's more impactful than saying, I don't see whatever that difference is.
Are the kids today better at that than we are?
I think, yeah. I think the kids today are a lot more progressive than we are, and that's probably why, some of the things that are happening in a positive way is because they're really willing to push. I think the times are just different, but they're pushing, and I think all of us need to continue to push for things that make the world a better place, make all of us individually better human beings, and just trying to love one another, support one another. Agree to disagree.
Even if you don't always agree. That's where
agree
I was
to disagree. Go. Yep, agree to disagree. That's fine because I promise you, there's probably no one that you agree with 100% of the time.
No, my wife will tell you that.
And I would say, I'm glad you said it because that way I don't have to. But no, I mean, there's things within my own house that we don't agree all the time, but that doesn't change the love and affection and everything that you have for others. So that's just important. Ray Lewis said it best, and you just alluded to it. I heard him say, great things happen when your comfort zone is disturbed. And that's so true when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So having the experience that you have had of being who you are all of your life, since you have taken on this job responsibility, what have you learned about Rob Carson?
That I, too, need to be more open about learning differences of other, whether it's cultures, other beliefs, other, affinity groups. The more I can learn about others, I think that just helps me to be an advocate. Because for so long, when you're in a marginalized group, you think that you need all of the advocates to be for you. And realizing that whether it's a member of the LGBT community, whether it's from religion beliefs, whether it's economic, whatever those differences are and those marginalized groups are, everybody needs support. Everybody needs affinity. Everybody needs someone that can advocate for them and champion for them.
And you
That's
can,
what I'm learning.
And you can support without agreeing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You don't have to sacrifice your personal beliefs to be kind to somebody.
No, not at all. I think your integrity, your beliefs, they are what they are. But your understanding of why, or just maybe things that you may say of how hard they can impact others, like even the little things. I don't think it's rocket science. I just think it's the little things that we all have to learn, and the little adjustments and tweaks that we do in our everyday lives is going to make the biggest impact.
We're visiting with Rob Carson as we get into wrap-up mode on this edition of Inside Furman Athletics. And like I say, I kind of wanted to get all the other stuff out of the way so we could spend a good amount of time on this because I think it's important. And I think one of the things that we have forgotten in this country, and we're certainly not going to go down the political road, but that's where it is most prevalent right now, is that you don't have to have the same belief system. You don't have to agree with everybody, but we've lost the ability to be able to have decent conversations and still look at somebody and say, I consider them a friend, even if they believe this way or they believe that way or whatever it is. I've quit watching the news.
Oh, yeah, you're right. When you throw politics into anything, I think you definitely blur the lines. But,
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, I think the individual conversations, politicians and different things that I see on TV, I'm probably never going to have a one-on-one conversation with them to get to a true understanding. But there's people that's in my community, people that I talk to, associate with every day, that we have differences, different beliefs, different political views, but we get a chance to have a conversation. And I get a chance to understand, okay, you know what? I understand. Now that makes sense for you. Even though it doesn't make sense for me, it makes sense for you, and I understand. And, we kind of agree to disagree on that particular thing, but it doesn't take away from the relationship we're able to build.
It sounds so simple.
It does. It does. Maybe, like I said, maybe we've been looking at it the wrong way for too long.
Now, if you can just figure out that male-female relationship inside the framework of the home, right?
Yes,
If
yes.
you can get that figured out, you'd
Happy
be in good
wife,
shape.
happy life.
It's the old joke about the guy that God visited one day and said that you've been such a great servant. I'm going to grant you any wish. And the guy said that I've always wanted to go to Hawaii, but I'm afraid to fly. So could you build a bridge from California to Hawaii so I could drive? And God says, I come down and I give you an opportunity to change the world with asking for anything. And you ask for a bridge? And the guy says, well, Lord, you're right. He says, I tell you what. He says, I've been married for 30 years. I just cannot understand what my wife wants from me. Can you help me understand women better? And God said, you want that bridge 2 lanes or 4?
He said it might be a little easier. Huh?
Yeah. We don't have that kind of time to go into that. So you take that for what it's worth.
Oh, yeah.
And anything else that we need to get to? I've tried to spend as much time as we could to cover everything you do, because there's a lot there to cover. Anything else we need to get into?
No, I just think for those that are listening, just thank you for your continued support. Our student athletes that our coaches bring in are nothing short of amazing. What they're able to do day in, day out, in the classroom, in the community, on the field, the court, the track, wherever it may be, they're nothing short of amazing. And I think they're worthy of all of the praise we give them. They're worthy of all of the support we can give them when we're showing up to games, supporting them financially, whether it's with fundraising. They're going to be the pioneers leading the charge in the future. That's our future. And as much as we can invest in them, that's my biggest thing. It's so many people that helped me get to where I am now that I can never repay. But I realize my way of repaying them is to pay it forward to somebody else. So just having the opportunity that we have every day to hopefully make a positive impact in the lives of the student athletes that we serve, there's not a greater reward for me than to see their success beyond Furman.
Just like as a parent, you want your own kids to have it better than you had. You want them to work for it and understand that aspect of it, but you want them to have it better than you had. as a coach or an administrator, you want, if you were a player, you want the players who come after you to have a better experience than you had,
Yes.
while working for it and understanding what it takes to get there, and not just having things handed to them on a silver platter.
Yes.
There's that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is the sense of entitlement sometimes from today's generation. Of, you know, I tell them during recruiting visits all the time, you know, you go from when you're recruited from high school to college, or when you go from college and you're fortunate enough to go pro, you go from being number one to just another one. And you have to prove yourself and earn your stripes all over again, because as you grow and as you progress, everybody at that level may have had the same amount of success that you've had, whether it's state championship rings, whether it's the grades you made. You got to come in and you got to work and you got to grind and you got to earn your keep, and not look for handouts, not wait for someone to bail you out, but also don't be scared to fail, because if you never failed, you're not trying hard enough. So I just think any way that we can continue to support our kids, support them through the good and the bad, and just help them be a better versions of themselves, I think we've done exactly what we're here to do.
This is Rob Carson, Associate Athletic Director, and I'm going to cut you a break. I'm not going to call you Mr. Jackie Carson today.
Hey, that's my one job I can't fail at, man.
You better not.
The two things I always say, being a father and being a husband, those are the most important things to me.
Absolutely.
So those things, hey, we take it. It's a team. It's a package deal. So we do a great job of balancing, our professional lives and our personal lives. And like I said, we've done it for a while now, so I feel like we got it down pat.
Well, Furman is much better off for that package.
Well, thank you.
I can promise you that. Thank you for your time today. I know you got a meeting to get to, and we need to get you out of here. But this is Rob Carson, Associate Athletic Director. It has been just fantastic catching up with him today. We will be back again next week with another look at what's going on inside the world of Furman Athletics. That's why we cleverly named this video podcast Inside Furman Athletics. Until then, for Rob and all of us here at Furman, I'm Dan Scott, as always, saying God bless you, and so long, everybody.
Thanks, Dan.